Give me the small one, too. Just in case. Give me the small one. Do we have that? Yeah, not good. Okay. ಸಂಸಾರದಾವ ನಲಲಿದಲೋಕ ತ್ರಣಯ ಕಾರುಣ್ಯ ಘನ ಘನಾತ್ವಂ ಪ್ರಾಪ್ತಸ್ಯ ಕಲ್ಯಾಣ ಗುಣಾರ್ಣವಸ್ಯ ವಂದೇ ಗುರೋ ಶ್ರೀ ಚರಣಾರವಿಂದಂ ಮಹಾಪ್ರಭೋ ಕೀರ್ತನ ನಿತ್ಯ ಗೀತಾ ವಾದಿತ್ರಮಾದ್ಯಾನ್ ಮನಸೋ ರಸೇನ रोमाञ्चकम्पासुतरङ्गभाजो वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् श्रीविग्रहाराधननित्यनाना सिंगारतान्मन्दिरमाजनादौ युक्तस्य भक्तां शनियञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् चतुर्विधासी भगवत्प्रसादो स्वादन्न तृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्गान् कृत्वैव तृप्तिं भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् श्रीराधिका माधवयोरपारा माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्नाम् प्रतिक्षणास्वादनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् निकुञ्जयूनो रतिकेलिसिद्धै यायालिभिर्युक्तिरपेक्षणीया तत्रातिदक्ष्याद् अतिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् साक्षाद्धरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रे युक्तस्तथा भाव्यत एव सद्भिः किन्तु प्रभोया प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादात् न गति कुतोऽपि ध्यायां स्तुवं तस्य यशस्त्रीसन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् ध्यायां स्तुवं तस्य यशस्त्रीसन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
सत्कुण्डलं गोकुले भ्राजमानम् यशोदाभियो लोकलाथवमानम् परामृष्टम् अत्यन्ततो धृत्य गोप्या रुदन्तं मुहुर्नेत्रयुग्ममृजन्तं कराम्भुजयुग्मेन सातङ्कनेत्रम् मुहुश्वासकम्पत्रिरेखाङ्ककण्ठा स्थितग्रैवं दामोदरं भक्तिबद्धम् इति दृक्स्वलीलाभिरानन्दकुन्दे स्वघोषं निमज्जन्तम् आख्यापयन्तम् तदीयेषिताग्निषु भक्तैर्चित्तत्वम् पुनः प्रेमतस्तं शतावृत्ति वन्दे वरं देवमोक्षं न मोक्षवधिं वा न चान्यं वृणेऽहं वरेशादपीह इदं ते वपुर्नाथ गोपालबालम् सदा मे मनसा वीरास्तं किमन्ये अत्यन्तनीलै वृत्तं कुन्तलै स्निग्धरक्तैश्च गोप्या मुहुश्चुम्बितं बिम्बरक्तधरं मे मनस्य वीरास्तं बालं लक्ष्यलाभै नमो देवदामोदरानन्त विष्णु प्रसीद प्रभो दुःखजालाभिमग्नम् कृपादृष्टिवृष्ट्यातिदीनं बतानु गृहाणि क्षमामज्ञामेध्यक्षिदृश्य कुबेरात्मजौ बद्धमूर्त्यैव यद्वा त्वया मोचितौ भक्तिभाजकृतौ च तथा प्रेमभक्तिं स्वकाम्ये प्रयच्छ न मोक्षे ग्रहो मे श्रीदामोदरेण नमस्तेऽस्तु दाम्ने स्फुरदीप्तिधाम्ने त्वदीयोदराय यथा विश्वस्य धाम्ने नमो राधिकायै त्वदीयप्रियायै नमो नन्दलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यम् नमो राधिकायै त्वदीयप्रियायै नमो नन्दलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यम् हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे दामोदर श्री राधे। जय राधा नीलमाधव राधा नीलमाधव राधा नीलमाधव श्री राधे। जय जगन्नाथ जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेवा जय सुभद्रा। जय सीताराम जय सीताराम जय सीताराम जय लक्ष्मण हनुमान। जय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय। जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा।
Jai Om Vishnu Pad Bhagavan Jataraj Chasta Saraswati Shri Shri Srimad Divine Grace Shri Bhakti Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mayapura Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Shri Damodar Astakam Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guru, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavan Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tanamani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pacharane Nivrisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarane.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Adaladalayane.
Hiranyakashipurvakshaha.
Hiranyakashipurvakshaha.
Shilatankanakalaye.
Shilatam Ganakalaye.
Ito Nasingha Parato Nasingha.
Ito Nisingha Bharato Nisingha.
Yato Yato Yami Tato Nasingha.
Yato Yato Yami Tato Nisingha.
Bahe Nasingha Hridaye Nasingha.
Nisingha Hidaye Nisingha.
Narasingha Madhim Sharanam Prapati.
Nashinanadir Saranam Vapade.
Tava Karaka
Kashipu Danubhyam Nishavadita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadesha Hare Jai Jagadesha Hare Jai Jagadesha Hare
केशवदीता नरहरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
Keshavadita Narari Rupa Jaya Jagadesha Hare Jaya Jagadesha Hare Jaya Jagadesha Hare
जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव
Jaya Narasinghadev Jaya Narasinghadev Jaya Narasinghadev Jaya Narasinghadev
जयो प्रहलाद महाराज जयो प्रहलाद महाराज जयो प्रहलाद महाराज जयो प्रहलाद महाराज
Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj
भगवान की
Vrindaye Tulsidevaya Priyaye Keshavasya Cha Vishnu Bhakti Paridevi Satyavrataye Namo Namaha Vrindaye Tulsidevaya Priyaye Keshavasya Cha Vishnu Bhakti Paridevi Satyavrataye Namo Namaha Vrindaye Tulsidevaya Priyaye Keshavasya Cha Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Satyavrataye Namo Namaha Vrindaye Tulsidevaya Namaha
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः
Shri Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः
Shri Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
राधा कृष्णा सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी
Radha Krishna Seva Pava Hey Abhilasi
राधा कृष्णा सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी
Radha Krishna Seva Pava Hey Abhilasi
जितो मारा शरण लो तारा पंच पूरन हो
To Gomara Sarana Lord Panchapurnaho
Kripa kori koro tare Vrindavan vasi
Kripa kori koratare Vrindavanavasi
Morae Abhilash Dilas Kunjadiyo vas Nayane Haribo Sada Jugal Ruparasi
Nayane Rimatala Yugala Ruparasi Sakira Anugata Koro
Seva adhikara diye Koro nijadasi
Ivakari Koratare Vrindavanavasi
Dina Krishna dase koe Ei jina mora hoy
Krishna Dase Kor Hey Anuruna Hor
Shri Radha Govinda preme Sada jina bhasi
Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Vasi
Shri Radha Govinda preme Sada jina bhasi
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Vasi
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Vasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namah
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Vasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namah
Yani kani cha papani Brahma hatyadikani cha Kani kani prana shanti Pradakshina pade pade
Yani Kani Chapapani Brahmahatyadikani Cha Anitani Prani Santi Adikshana Bhave Bhade
Yani kani cha papani Brahma hatyadikani cha Kani kani prana shanti Pradakshina pade pade
Yani Kani Chapapani Brahmahatyadikani Cha Tani Tani Prana Santi Adikshana Bhade Bhade
Yani kani cha papani Brahma hatyadikani cha Kani kani prana shanti Pradakshina pade pade
Yani Kani Chapapani Brahmahatyadikani Cha Tani tani bani shanti vadekshana bade bade.
Yani kani cha papani brahma hatyadikani cha. Tani tani gana shanti pradikshana bade bade.
Yani gani cha papani brahma hatyadikani cha. Tani tani bani shanti vadekshana bade bade.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani. Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi. Nityai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nityai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nityai Gaura Hari Bol. Srimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai.
Vrindaye tulsi devaya priyaye keshavasya cha. Vishnu bhakti pradidevi sacharataya namo namaha.
Vrindaye tulsi devaya Krishna Satya Vishnu
Vrindaye tulsi devaya priyaye keshavasya cha. Vishnu bhakti pradidevi sacharataya namo namaha. Vrindaye tulsi devaya priyaye keshavasya cha. Vishnu bhakti pradidevi sacharataya namo namaha. Vrindaye tulsi devi Maharani ki jai. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Staya Bhutani Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Disatarini.
Oh Tulsi,
See,
beloved
beloved of Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My
My
desire
desire
to
to obtain
obtain
the
the
service
service
to
of
Shri
Shri
Radha
Radha
and Krishna.
Whoever takes shelter of you has his wishes fulfilled. bestowing your
mercy
mercy
upon him, you make him
make him
resident of
Vrindavan.
Vrindavan.
My
My
desire
desire that you
is
also
to
give me
be
residence
resident
in pleasure
in
groves of Sri
Vrindavan.
Vrindavan.
Thus
Thus
within my vision,
I
I'll
will
always
always
behold
the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg to make me a follower carry the images of Radha.
Please give me the privilege of
devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant Krishna prays. May I always sing in love with Shri Radha and Govind. Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Vrindi Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kristakam Ki Chaito Darpanam Majanam Madhavani Vapanam Shri Akariva Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Budivardhanam Pratiparam Purnamruta Swadanam Sarvatmasnam Paramparam Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakariva Udhanija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pitanyamita Smarane Nakala Ita Drushti Tava Kripaya Bhavan Mamapi Durdhaivam Dishamya Janina Nuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amani Namanadena Kirtaniya Sada Hari Na dhanam na janam na sundarim Kavitamba jagari shakamaye Mama janmani janmanishwari Bhavatar bhakti rahaitu kitvayi Oinanda tanuja kinkaram Patitamam vishame bhavambudo Kripaya tava pada pankajasti taduli sadrisham vichintaya Nayanam galorashrudharaya Badanam gadagadarudaya gira Pulakai chitam bapukada Tavanamagrani bhavisyati Jugaitam nimishena Chakusha prabhusaitam Sunyaitam jagat sarvam Govinda virahena me Aslishavapadaratam pinastumam Adarshanar marmahatam karotuva Jatatava vidadatulam pato Matpranatastu saivana para Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kristakam Ki Jai. Namo Mahaprabhu. Krishna Chaitanya Namini Gauri Tvishena. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart with the dust like we made for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is a prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. And these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There is not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names. But I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind, thinking oneself a Lord on strong street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer our respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause of devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharajana and Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I am fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, or will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? Or will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on the end of the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if surrounded roughly by his embrace. or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he's always my worshipful Lord unconditioned. Shri Shri Shikyastakam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. Blasphemy of devotees who dedicate life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. Consider names, demigods, and Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the order of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuance of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are often Vedas as fruitive activity karma kanda. 9. To strike the faithless person by the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be in attempt toward chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees, they can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls.
Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnebhyo namo namaha. Jai. Shrimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shrimad Bhagavatam Canto 2, Chapter 7, Verse number 42. I think we did this yesterday. Yeah, 43 and 45. Okay. Vedahamanga Paramasya hi Yogamayam Yuyam Bhavascha Bhagavan Atadaitya Varya Patni Mano Sachamanus Chatad Apmaja Ajascha Prasina Barhir Ribur Anga Utta Juvascha Iksvakur Alya Mocha Kunda Videha Gadi Ragam Barisha Sagara Gayana Husadya Mandatrir Alarka Satadan Vanuranti Deva Deva Vrato Balir Amurtarayo Dilipa Sobar Yutan Kasibivala Pipalada Saraswato Dadava Parasara Burisenaha Yene Vibhisana Hanu Mad Upendra Data Partar Sristisena Vidura Sutadeva Varya Veda, know it. Aham, myself. Anga, O Narada. Paramasya, of the Supreme. He, certainly. Yoga Mayam, potency. Yuyam, yourself. Bhava, Shiva. Cha, and Bhagavan, the great demigod. Ata, as also. Daityavarya, Prahlada Maharaja, the great devotee of the Lord born in the family of an atheist. Patni, Satarupa, Mano, of Manu. Sa, he, Cha, also, Manu, Swayambhuva, Cha, and Tat Atmajaha, Cha, and his children like Priyavrata, Uttanapada, Devahuti, etc. Parsinabharhi, Parsinabharhi, Ribu, Ribu, Anga, Anga, Uta, even, Dhruva, Dhruva, Cha, and Ikshvaku, Ikshvaku, Aila, Aila, Muchakunda, Muchakunda, Videha, Maharaj Janaka, Gadi, Gadi, Raghu, Raghu, Ambarisha, Ambarisha, Sagara, Sagra, Gaya, Gaya, Nahusa, Nahusa, Adya, and so on. Mandhatar, Mandata, Alarka, Alarka, Satadanu, Satadanu, Anu, Anu, Rantideva, Rantideva, Devarata, Bhisma, Bali, Bali, Amurtaraya, Amurtaraya, Dilipa, Dilipa, Sobari, Sobari, Utanka, Utanka, Sibi, Sibi, Devala, Devala, Pipalada, Pipalada, Sarasvata, Sarasvata, Udava, Udava, Parashara, Parashara, Purisenda, Purisena, Ye, those who, Anye, others, Vibhishana, Vibhishana, Hanumat, Hanuman, Upendra Datta, Sukadeva Goswami, Partha, Arjuna, Artisena, Artisena, Vidura, Vidura, Sutadeva, Sutadeva, Varya, the foremost. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. O Narada, although the potencies of the Lord are unknowable and immeasurable, still, because we are all surrendered souls, we know how he acts through Yogamaya potencies. And, similarly, the potencies of the Lord are also known to the all-powerful Shiva, the great king of the atheist family, namely Prahlad Maharaja, Swayambhuva Manu, his wife Satarupa, his sons and daughters like Priyavrata, Uttanapada, Akuti, Devahuti, and Prasuti, Parsinibharhi, Ribu, Anga, the father of Vena, Maharaja Dhruva, Ikshvaku, Aila, Muchakunda, Maharaja Janaka, Gadi, Raghu, Ambarisha, Sagara, Gaya, Nahusa, Mandata, Alarka, Satadanve, Anu, Rantideva, Bhisma, Bali, Amurtaraya, Dilipa, Sobari, Utanka, Sibi, Devala, Pipalada, Sarasvata, Udava, Parasara, Burisena, Vibhusana, Hanuman, Sukadeva Goswami, Arjuna, Aristasena, Vidura, Srutadeva, etc. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. All the great devotees of the Lord, as mentioned above, who flourished in the past or present, and all the devotees of the Lord who will come in the future are aware of the different potencies of the Lord, along with the potency of his name, quality, pastimes, entourage, personality, etc. And how do they know? Certainly it is not by mental speculation, nor by any attempt by dint of limited instruments of knowledge. By the limited instruments of knowledge, either the senses or the material instruments like microscopes and telescopes, one cannot even fully know the Lord's material potencies, which are manifested before our eyes. For example, there are many millions and billions of planets far, far beyond the scientist's calculation, but these are only the manifestation of the Lord's material energy. What can the scientist hope to know of the spiritual potency of the Lord by such material efforts? Mental speculation, by adding some dozens of ifs and maybes, cannot aid the advancement of knowledge. On the contrary, such mental speculations will only end in despair by diminishing the case abruptly and declaring the non-existence of God. The sane person, therefore, ceases to speculate on subjects beyond the jurisdiction of his tiny brain, and as a matter of course, he tries to learn to surrender unto the Supreme Lord, who alone can lead one to the platform of real knowledge. In the Upanishads, it is clearly said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead can never be known simply by working very hard and taxing the good brain, nor can he be known simply by mental speculation and jugglery of words. The Lord is knowable only by one who is a surrendered soul. Herein, Brahmaji, the greatest of all material living beings, acknowledges this truth. Therefore, the fruitless spoiling of energy by pursuing the path of experimental knowledge must be given up. One should gain knowledge by surrendering unto the Lord and by acknowledging the authority of the persons mentioned herein. The Lord is unlimited, and by the grace of the Yoga Maya helps the surrendered soul to know him proportionately with the advance of one's surrender. Gaura Premanandi, Haribol, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I won't read the verse again. So many names, but we get the idea. And so, O Narada, although the potency of the Lord are knowable and immeasurable, still, because we are all surrendered souls, we know how he acts through Yogamaya potencies. So what does it mean, Yogamaya potencies? Well, Yogamaya sometimes reveals Krishna and sometimes caches Krishna, or hides Krishna, or covers Krishna. So therefore, sometimes the Lord is visible and sometimes he's not. And she does this in the material world and the spiritual world. So therefore, we should always pray. Hiranmayana patrena satyasya pitam bhakam tattvam pusam apavrinu satyadharmaya dristaye. Dristaye means see. My dear Lord, your beautiful face is covered by the shroud of the Brahma Jyoti. Please lift this shroud so I can see your smiling face. Pusaneka seyamasruya prajapatya vyuha rasmi samahate jaha yatte rupam kalyanatamam tate pasyami yo savaso purushaha sohamasmi. This is the Isha Upanishad verses 15 and 16. So, we should not be dazzled by the Brahma Jyoti. We should know that the Brahma Jyoti is simply the effulgence coming from the transcendental body of Krishna. And that we should know that the highest knowledge and the most beautiful thing that's possible to see is the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything emanates from Krishna's body. It's just like trying to find the source of the Ganges. You would have to go all the way up into the Himalayas, and you would eventually find part of a mountain where the water is coming out. Have you ever been there? Anybody been there? Huh? Yeah, I know. Anybody been there? Okay. Well, there's always a source, and the original source of everything is the transcendental body of Krishna. Therefore, Krishna's body, Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's name, his qualities, his entourage, his personality. This is the highest knowledge. This is the summum bonum, or tattva vishesha, the excellence of truth, and that is Krishna. Therefore, what should be the study for our children? What should be the study for us? It should be Krishna. And where can you study Krishna? Bhagavad Gita, and especially Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, these two books should be heard every day and discussed. Previously, this was what was being taught in the Sanskrit tikis, or Sanskrit schools. They would learn Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. What did Vyasadeva do? He divided the Srimad Bhagavatam into 4 parts to make it easier to understand. And he gave each part to one of his disciples, so that at that time nothing was written down. So those 4 disciples memorized. It's hard for one person to memorize the whole thing, so they memorized those 4 parts. In other words, the Rig Veda, the Sama Veda, the Yajur Veda, and the Atharva Veda. They memorized it, and they kept it alive. And then when Kali Yuga started, they had to write it down, because in Kali Yuga, people's memories are not very good, and their duration of life is not very long, and they're always troubled by different miseries of this body and mind, miseries caused by other bodies, and miseries caused by natural cataclysmic events. And they're lazy, and they think that the more they sleep, the more it's beneficial for them, and the more they're successful in life. No, the less you sleep is more beneficial for you. You need a certain amount of sleep. Like Rupa Goswami, he only slept 1.5 hours a day, and sometimes he didn't even do that. And Prabhupada, he slept maybe 2-3 hours. That was it. Maybe he would nap a little bit. One time I was driving Srila Prabhupada. He was sitting next to me. It was just him and myself in the car. And he had just landed in Paris, in the airport. And I picked him up, and I was driving him. And he dozed off a little bit. Not for a long time. He just dozed off a little bit, and then he just opened his eyes again when he saw I was getting lost. Fortunately, I was able to correct myself, and I got him to the temple. But so he would doze off a little bit and come back again. That's called a power rest, right? During the day, you take a 10-minute or 5-minute power rest, and it rejuvenates you. But he would, obviously, how could he translate so many books? He only slept 2 hours, maximum 3 hours in a day. The rest of the time he was either writing books or preaching or talking to people and so forth. So here we see that knowing Krishna is real knowledge. And this is basically what Prabhupada said. Yesterday we were reading from this lecture, the Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, 1st chapter, 3rd verse. And there, Prabhupada says, if you want to know the Supreme, then you have to hear from him. Well, that's Bhagavad Gita, hearing directly from Krishna, right? Because Krishna is speaking. Just like about Krishna, we have to hear from him. Krishna is speaking Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is speaking everything. All Vedic knowledge is Krishna. Krishna is speaking. How Krishna is speaking? That is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.1. Krishna spoke to Brahma. Adhikavi means Brahma. He spoke to him. But if somebody says, Brahma, when Brahma was born from the lotus flower, there was nobody there. So how could he hear from anybody? Therefore, Bhagavata says, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye. Hrida means through the heart. Through the heart he was educated. Brahma was educated. Therefore, Krishna's another name is Chaita Guru. Chaita Guru means the Guru who is sitting within your heart. Chaita Guru. But he does not speak to anyone. He speaks to everyone, but only the devotee can hear. That is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Tesam satata yuktanam bhajtam pritipurvakam dadami buddhiyogam tam yenamam upayanti te. Bhagavad Gita 10:10. Unless you are a devotee, unless you are constantly engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, He will not speak to you. He speaks, but you cannot hear. But who is hearing? Nobody is hearing. Nobody is hearing. They have got their own conception of life. Yeah. So this is an amazing statement by Prabhupada, and it's a fact. In fact, I want to read something that's very interesting. It says, one second. Oh, jeez. Yeah. This just came out. There's a statement by Professor Nasir bin Suleiman Ul Omar of Saudi Arabia. And he said the following: India is in a deep sleep. Islam is growing rapidly. Thousands of Muslims have infiltrated the police, military, bureaucracy, etc., and entered important organizations. Islam is the second largest religion in India. Today, India is on the verge of destruction. Just as the rise of a nation takes decades, so does its destruction. India will not end overnight. It will be phased out. We Muslims continue to do so very seriously. India must be destroyed. About 65,000 babies are born every day in India. Of these, about 40,000 are Muslim children, and about 25,000 are children of Hindus and other religions. That means the birth rate is about 20% of the total population of Muslims. Among the children born now, Muslims are the majority and Hindus are the minority. At this rate, Muslims will be in the majority in India by 2050. No one will stop India from becoming a Muslim nation because India will immediately burn in the fire of riots. We Muslims will kill Hindus and put an end to them. Today, according to official statistics, Muslims make up about 20% of the population, but in reality, they have surpassed 25%. Official figures are incorrect because Wahhabi Muslims deliberately hide real numbers and do not record this growing population as their weapon to keep Kafir Hindus ignorant. There is widespread deception in India in the name of secularism, but the unfortunate Hindus are still fast asleep. One wonders why Hindus did not learn by looking at Kashmir, where Hindus had to give up all their wealth and women and girls. Secularism in India is as long as Hindus are the majority, and they do not know what will happen to them if they are a minority. The Hindu will never speak, will remain calm, will take a high moral position. Therefore, his destiny will surely sink. Pakistan and Bangladesh, or Kashmir, for example, the Hindus will surely perish. Consider the Muslim majority areas of Kerala, Bengal, Uttar Pradesh, Hyderabad, and other states where infidels are constantly migrating from Muslim areas to Hindu settlements. Never go to an area where there are Muslim people in your city. You might catch your breath in their eyes. Apart from this, countries like Zambia and Malaysia are also examples. Once the Muslim majority came, these secular countries were declared as Islamic countries. There are examples in London, Sweden, France, and Norway where violence occurs every day. Have you ever wondered why this is happening? Who does what is the purpose? Okay, anyway, you get the idea. This is a man who's speaking openly.
Public statement like this.
Huh?
He made a public statement.
He made a public statement, yeah. And it keeps going on, right? And they're not afraid to say it. This is their strategy. And he says the Hindus are sleeping. And they will be a secular state and permit this to go on until we're in the majority. Then we'll kill them all. He said that's what we did in Kashmir. We're doing it in Bangladesh. We did it in Pakistan. We'll do it in Pakistan. We're doing it in London. We're doing it here. We're doing it there. There you go. There's a statement. Now, why is this happening? Because, declare India a secular state. It doesn't support any religion, but it favors Islam and Christianity and Buddhism. And it disfavors Hinduism, or at least Vedic Dharma. So here we see that the stack is decked against the Hindus by their own government, and it's planned to destroy the whole Vedic culture in India, which is the bastion of Vedic culture, at least some of it. So why is this? Because the Brahmanas have failed. They're not actually Brahmanas. They're just money men, most of them. They're just making disciples and harvesting the money, and not really teaching Vedic Dharma. So they're teaching rituals, yes, but that's not necessarily Vedic Dharma. Vedic Dharma means that you have to understand Krishna. Vedaischa sarva aham eva vedya. That's what Vedic Dharma is about. Sarvasichanam hridhi sanivisto matak smriti jnanam apahanam cha Vedaischa sarva aham eva vedya vedanta krit vedavid eva chaham. I am in the heart of all living entities, and from me come knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. And I am to be known through all the Vedas. And I am the compiler of the Vedas, and I know the Vedas. So here, now you're going to hear something Prabhupada says, which is amazing. He says, therefore, unless there is mercy of Krishna, there's no possibility of understanding Krishna. Atakshi Krishna namadi nabhavid graham indriyai. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 17:136. By these blunt material senses, you cannot understand what is the name of Krishna. Namadi. By the way, how does the Damodar Astakam start? Namam Ishwaram. So it begins with Namadi. Nama. Offering obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And it says clearly that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's called Tattva Vishesha, the excellence of the truth about Krishna. That's the first verse of the Damodarastakam. Are people preaching? Are the Hindus preaching this? No, they're preaching some hodgepodge thing. You can worship any god you want, blah blah blah. You can also worship Radha and Krishna, but they're equal to the other gods, and the other gods are equal to them. They've ruined the whole Vedic knowledge. See? This Damodar Astakam is extremely important because it makes it very clear that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's right in the first verse of the Damodar Astakam. And it's the first verse of Rama Samhita. And it's the introduction to Srimad Bhagavatam. And Krishna says it over and over again. In fact, there was this one person that was here for some time, and he was a so-called devotee of Lord Ramachandra. But he had a very snide opinion of Krishna. And one time he said, look, there's only one verse in the Gita that talks really definitively about Krishna. That is the 10th chapter, 8th verse. And he said, besides that, there's nothing else that's pointing to Krishna. And he said, through all the Vedic knowledge, he said, no, it wasn't, he didn't say that. He said, there's only one verse, that's Srimad Bhagavatam 1.3.28, where it says that, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Well, wait a minute. In many places in the Bhagavad Gita, it says Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhava matak sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajanti mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. Okay, it says it there. But it says in the 8th chapter also, he says, one second, let me find it. Purusha Sapara Parta Bhakta Bhaktya Labhyas Tvananyaya Yashantakstani Bhutani Yena Sarvamidam Tatam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, meaning Purusha, Purusha Para, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Although he is present in his abode, he is all-pervading, and everything is situated in him. There. So, then again, of course, that verse, Aham Sarvasya Prabhava, Krishna says about himself that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he says this other verse, 8:22, that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then Arjuna says it also, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavaptam, Paramam Bhavam. So Arjuna also says so. And then he says again in the 10th chapter, 12th verse, and then again 10th chapter, 15th verse, Swayam evat manatmanam vita tvam purushottama bhuta bhavena bhutesu deva deva jagatpate. He's saying, indeed, you alone know yourself, O Krishna, by your own internal potency, O Supreme Person, origin of all, Lord of all beings, God of gods, Lord of the universe. So many places in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying, Arjuna is saying, and Sanjaya is saying also, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Where does Sanjaya say it? He says it right at the end. One time some man came here, and he had a big stack of books, and he said, "Are you Hari Vilas?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "I want to talk to you privately." I said, "Okay, you can talk." I was in the lobby. He said, "No, I want to speak to you privately." I said, "There's no privacy here. Just say what you want." So he said, I've come here to really set you guys straight. I said, "Okay, how are you going to set us straight?" He said, "Krishna did not speak the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Shiva did. And my Gurudev has written this book," and he had a whole stack of it. And this proves that Shiva spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita. I said, "Well," I said, "I'm sorry to, put a pin in your balloon that's inflated." I said, "But that's false." I said, "There are bigger authorities than your guru." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, there's Sanjaya." He said, in the 18th chapter, he says, "Rajan samritya samvadam ibam adbhuta keshavarjuno punyam hrishyami chamuhurmuhu." O king, as I repeatedly recall this wondrous and holy dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, I take pleasure, being thrilled at every moment. I said, he's saying Krishna and Arjuna. He didn't say Shiva and Arjuna. And then again he says, Tach cha samsmitya rupam adbhutam hare vishmayo me mahan rajan hrishyami cha punak punah. O king, as I remember the wonderful form of Lord Krishna, I am struck with wonder more and more, and I rejoice again and again. Yatra yogeshwaro Krishno, yatra partha dhanurdara, tatra si vijaya bhutir dhruva nitir matir mama. Wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme Arjuna, the archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. I said, where does it say Shiva? It doesn't say Shiva anywhere. So, yeah, it mentions Shiva sometimes in the Bhagavad Gita also, but he's the servant of the Lord. He's subordinate to the Lord. I said, so, your guru is not an authority. Sanjaya is an authority. He was there 5,000 years ago. And Arjuna is authority. He was there 5,000 years ago witnessing Krishna. And Krishna is the authority. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I said, he said, well, no, you should distribute this. Okay, I said, give me the book. I'll distribute them. As soon as he left, I threw them all away. This is crazy. People are crazy in India. The Hindus have gone crazy. They're not actually following, or very few are actually following Vedic Dharma. They've gone hodgepodge, all speculation. and they follow people like Asat Guru. He said, why should you read some 5,000-year-old book? I'm here right now. And then this other one, the crazy so-called Nityananda, he said, I didn't come here to tell you I am God. I am here to tell you that you are God. This is all nonsense. And people believe it, you see. And the Muslims are laughing at the Hindus. They're mocking them. And look, they're blatantly and arrogantly speaking, like this man, this Uldin or whatever his name is, in Saudi Arabia. They know what's going to happen. They base everything on the body. And so do the Hindus, base things on the body mostly. But that's not what Prabhupada says, and that's not what the Vedas say. Prabhupada says, Atak Shri Krishna Namadi. He said, Atak Shri Krishna Namadi, again, Namadi, right? This holy name of the Lord. And what is Krishna's form? What is Krishna's quality? What is Krishna's entourage? What is Krishna's pastime? You cannot understand. How you will be understanding? Sevan mukhe hi jivado swayam eva spratilya. Ada. When you are engaged in the loving service of the Lord, beginning with your tongue, Sevan mukhe hi jivado, by chanting this Hare Krishna mantra and taking prasadam, in this way, gradually, when you will be purified, you will understand what is Krishna. It's not, you see, Prabhupada is putting the full weight on chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and taking prasadam. Now, today is Saturday. Last Saturday, the people that cooked the morning prasadam, it was horrible. Now, we have to understand, there are two astras, two weapons that we have. We don't have machine guns, we don't have tanks, we don't have rockets, we don't have nuclear bombs. We have two astras, two weapons. It's called Harinam Sankirtan and Mahaprasadam. This is the way to purify people gradually. And when they get purified, they realize, wait a minute, the third astra is hearing every day Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. But you have to be purified to realize that. So people who don't do that, they're not purified yet. They may be initiated, it doesn't matter. They may have Bhakti Shastri, it doesn't matter. But they are not purified enough to hear every day, to sit down in a quiet place and hear every day Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. It's extremely important because, and now we're going to hear what Prabhupada says. He says, by chanting this Hare Krishna mantra and taking prasadam, in this way, gradually, when you will be purified, you will understand what is Krishna. He will reveal. Krishna reveals. Naham prakasa sarvasya yogamaya samanvritaha. He says clearly, 7th chapter, 25th verse, that I am not revealed. I do not reveal myself to everyone. But for others, he's covered with Yogamaya's curtain. But for the devotees, he is open. Naham prakasa sarvasya yogamaya samanvritaha mudo yam nabijananti mudo yam lokomam ajam avyayam. So he's not revealed to the atheists, to the speculators, or to the loose people who don't follow strictly. So in the 7th chapter, 25th verse, let's take a look at that purport because it's significant. Where he says, I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them, I am covered by my internal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. So in Prabhupada in the purport says, it may be argued that since Krishna was present on this earth and was visible to everyone, then why isn't he manifest to everyone now? But actually, he was not manifest to everyone. When Krishna was present, there were only a few people who could understand him to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You could count those people on your hands. You had the 5 Pandavas and a few others like Bhisma Pitamaha and Dronacharya. That's it. There are very few people Mother Yasoda, Kunti Devi, you know. But most people, and there was Sisapala, there were so many other people, they had different concepts of Krishna, but not as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Only a very few people did. So it says, in the assembly of the Kurus, when Sisapala spoke against Krishna's being elected president of the assembly, Bhisma supported him and proclaimed him, Bhisma Pitamaha supported him, meaning Krishna, and proclaimed him to be the supreme God. Similarly, the Pandavas and a few others knew that he was the supreme, but not everyone. He was not revealed to the non-devotees and the common man. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that but for his pure devotees, all men consider him to be like themselves. He was manifest only to his devotees as the reservoir of all pleasure, but to others, to unintelligent non-devotees, he was covered by his internal potency. In the prayers of Kunti in the Srimad Bhagavatam 1.8.19, it is said that the Lord is covered by the curtain of Yogamaya, and thus ordinary people cannot understand him. This Yogamaya curtain is also confirmed in the Ishopanishad, mantra 15, in which the devotee prays, Hiranmayana patrena satyasya pitam mukam tatvam pusamapavrinu satyadharmaya driste. O my Lord, you are the maintainer of the entire universe, and devotional service to you is the highest religious principle. Therefore, I pray that you will also maintain me. Your transcendental form is covered by the Yogamaya. The Brahmajyoti is the covering of the internal potency. May you kindly remove this glowing effulgence that impedes my seeing your Satchitananda Vigraha, your eternal form of bliss and knowledge. So that's an alternate translation of that verse in the 15th mantra of Ishopanishad. Now we see that the Mayavadis are in complete illusion. They want to merge into the Yogamaya or Brahmajyoti and not see the Vaikuntha planets that are in the Brahmajyoti also. They don't want to see Goloka Vrindavan. They don't want to see Krishna. They don't want to see the Surabhi cows. They don't want to see anything. So they are in the worst ignorance, and they're the worst blasphemers. You know, the Muslims are not the blasphemers. It's the Mayavadis that are the blasphemers of Krishna, the worst blasphemers. The Muslims will say, well, we don't believe in Krishna. Okay. But the Mayavadis, they go further than that. They say when Krishna came to this world, he had a material body. And on and on, they will insult the Lord. So therefore, one should avoid ever hearing the Mayavadis. Prabhupada says, this is the secret. What's the secret? Hare Krishna, Mahamantra, and Prasadam. Is it a secret? Yeah, it is a secret. There are people like the Jehovah's Witnesses, when they come to your house, if you say, can I give you a sweet? They say, did you offer that to your idol? If you say yes, they say, no, I don't want that. Right? The one thing that could help them, they don't want it. Right? And if you say, you know, instead of saying hello, you say Hare Krishna. I say, yeah, okay. Let's get along with. Would you like to hear about Jesus? They won't say Hare Krishna. You see, so they are the worst also, because they have this they categorically will reject any possibility of learning something about Krishna. Whereas the Mormons, they're a little more open. They'll say Hare Krishna. They'll accept some prasadam also. They might not become Krishna conscious now, but they will. They're not antagonistic like the Jehovah's Witnesses are. They're completely antagonistic. So Prabhupada says that by this prasadam and chanting Hare Krishna, one is purified. The senses are purified. And then one can hear about Krishna. He says, that is the secret. Vedesa durlabam adurlabam atma bhakto. If you simply study the Vedas, you will never be able to understand Krishna. let me repeat that again. He says, if you simply study the Veda, you will never be able to understand Krishna. Therefore, so many so-called Vedantists, they do not know what is Krishna. They consider Krishna as ordinary human being. Avajanantimam mudha manusim tanam asritahan. Bhagavad Gita 9:11. So the mudas, the rascals, they cannot understand Krishna. Only the devotees, bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyas chasmi tattvata tatumam tattvato gyatva visititat anantaram. Only the devotees, Bhagavad Gita 18:55. If you want to understand Krishna in truth, then you will have to accept this process, bhakti, or devotional service. Krishna never says that by jnana, by yoga, by karma, you can understand. No. So the jnanis, they're studying the Vedas. And the yogis, they're performing exercises and things that are recommended in the Vedas. And the karma yogis, they're performing rituals that are given in the Vedas. But they will never really understand Krishna by these things. So then Prabhupada says, so the Grihamedis, as I described last night, they are not interested. Grihamedis. Who are the Grihamedis? They're the people that sleep during the Brahma Muhurta. They're the people that at night they sleep or they have sex. And during the day, they work really hard to make a lot of money to spend on their families and their houses and their cars and all these things. And in order to have sense gratification. Those are called grihamedis. They have a griha, but they're not grihastas. They're grihamedis. See? Now, can a grihasta become a grihamedi? Yes. Can a grihamedi become a grihasta? Yes. See? The grihasta who becomes a grihamedi is because they're loose. They're not strictly following. And they are not diligent in their following. Therefore, they can fall down easily. But the Grihamedis, if they come in contact with genuine devotees, they can be transformed into Grihastas. Okay, so those who are simply attached to the bodily conception of life, they are unable to see the truth. Well, wait a minute. That's what they teach kids to be today, attached to the bodily concept of life. That's the whole purpose of material education. It's called material education because it's only concerned with matter. So when they dissect the body, you want to be a doctor, you have to dissect. You begin with a frog, and then they bring in a real human being who's dead, and you can dissect them, right? I remember in school, I had to dissect a frog, but when I heard that, if you want to be a doctor, you have to dissect a real body, I said, no way for me. No way, Jose. I'm not going to dissect a dead body. But that's what doctors have to do. And they take all the different body parts, and they bring in a dead body, someone who's dead, who's dedicated their body to advancing medical science. Okay, well, maybe. But, so here it says that apasyatam atvatatvam grihesu grihamedinam, Srimad Bhagavatam 2.1.2. Grihesu grihamedinam, those who are simply attached to the bodily conception of life, they are unable to see the truth. Apasyatam atvatatvam, they cannot see. Their only business is nidraya hridaye naktam. Yes, they sleep or they have sex at night. In the morning they wake up and they work really hard to make money in order to sleep better and to have sex at night and to spend money on buying things. Yes, they cannot see. Their only business is nidraya hridaya naktam. If you like, their business is this apasyatam atvatatvam, those who are blind, those who cannot see, the atva tattva, what I am. Such persons, what is their business occupation? That is the distinction between devotee and non-devotee. A non-devotee is very much happy by sleeping. We have seen it practically in Western countries. You know very well that if they can sleep 24 or 25 hours instead of 24 hours, they are very happy. They think that they are getting some profit. Not only Western countries, I have seen long, long ago, about 50 years ago in Calcutta. So 50 years ago, that means around 1910, 1920 at that time. He says, the office peons, in other words, the postmen in India, they took letters for distributing to other men. But what do? They will sleep in Delhousie Square. That's a place in Calcutta. He said they will sleep at Delhousie Square with the peon book. In other words, they have these books that they have to deliver because they're delivery men, they're postmen, right? I have seen. They thought that this sleeping is our gain. We are getting salary. That is another gain. But because without working I'm sleeping now for 3 hours in Delhousie Square, it is also another gain. So this is the conception of the sleeping is also pleasure. But for the devotees, for advanced devotees like Goswamis in Vrindavana, Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha, they conquered over sleeping. Nidrahara vihara kadi vijayto. Vijito, they conquered over sleeping. That is required. Just like Arjuna's address, Gudakesha. He conquered over sleeping. To conquer over sleeping is the success of life, not to be the servant of sleeping. That is not required. That is for the conditioned soul. Nidraya hridaya naktam. For conditioned soul. Therefore, we have to practice. Nidyahara harakadi vijito. Shi goranga gunanuvarnana vido shraddha samrid anvito. Nidyahara viharakadi vijito chatyanta dino chayo. This is the description of the Goswamis. Rupa Goswami used to sleep generally 1.5 hours only. And that is also sometimes not, and sometimes he did not sleep at all. That is the description in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So to increase sleeping is no qualification. To decrease sleeping, ahara nidra bhaya maitunam cha samanyam itat pasubir naranam. Eating, sleeping, sex life, and defending, this business is meant for the animals. So we have got the animal portion of our life because we are animals. Unless we come to the Krishna conscious point, we are simply animals. Those who are working on the bodily concept of life whole day and night, they are simply animals. Their business is to sleep as much as possible at night. Nidraya hridaya hriyate naktam. Otherwise, vyavayena chayavaya. Vyavaya. Vyavaya means sex. To business at night, either sex indulgence or sleep. This is atma tattvam apasyatam, meaning this is the way people become blind to the spiritual knowledge. Those who are awakened to the atma tattva, or the truth of the soul, they will simply think, how much time I have wasted. That is avyarta kalatvam. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 23, verses 18 and 19. Avyarta kalatvam means that a devotee is very diligent not to waste even 1 second of his life with nonsense or non-Krishna consciousness. They are very, very particular about using every second in the service of Krishna. A devotee should always be alert whether he is wasting time or utilizing time. That is devotee's business. So this nidraya hridaye naktam or vyavayena chavavaya, this is wasting life, wasting time. It should be minimized as far as possible. This is not required. This is the bodily necessities of life. And we have to come to the spiritual platform. We have to be engaged only in spiritual activities. But those who are not interested in self-realization, they must have some engagement. There are two things, Krishna or Maya, just like darkness and light. Where there is Krishna, there's no darkness. Krishna Surya Sama, Maya Haya Andhakara. Maya is just like darkness, and Krishna is just like sunlight. So as soon as there is sunlight, there is no darkness. Just like this is night. What does it mean, night? means there is no sunlight. Sunlight is there on the other part of this globe, but here there is no sunlight. Therefore, it is darkness. Similarly, as soon as we are not Krishna conscious, there is Maya. Immediately, either Maya or Krishna consciousness. If you are not in Krishna consciousness, then you should understand that you are in Maya. And if you are in Krishna consciousness, then there is no Maya. Mam eviye prapadyante mayametam tarantite. Bhagavad Gita 7:14. These are the open description. Anyone who is fully surrendered to Krishna, he has no Maya. So, Daivihi esu gunamai, mama maya duradya, mam eviye prapadyante mayametam tarantite. It is impossible. The first two lines of that verse, 7:14, says, it is impossible to overcome the material nature. So all these promises that the scientists and the philosophers are making, death will be optional in 2050. That's a bunch of nonsense. You cannot overcome the material nature. Krishna says it. He says, Daivihi esa gunamai. This material nature belongs to me, and it is impenetrable. You cannot overcome it. Do whatever you want to do. You'll never overcome the material nature. But one who surrenders unto me, they can become liberated from the material nature. So now, this does not mean that we shall completely exclude sleeping. Just like Goswamis, they were liberated persons, but they were also sleeping because we have got this body. Sleeping, rest is necessary. We cannot neglect this body, but not that we shall increase the necessities of life, increase the necessities of the body. Rupa Goswami has given, Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yukta Vairagyam Uchyate. We have to, mold our life in such a way. What is that? Anasaktasya Vishayan Yatarham Upayunjitaha. This is Vishaya. Vishaya means this eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. This is called Vishaya. Vishaya does not mean one who is very rich man. Vishaya does not mean one who is very rich man. He is Vishayi. No. Anyone, he may be poor man or rich man, if he is attached to this eating, sleeping, mating, and defending only, he is a Vishayi. The Lochana Das Thakur says, Vishaya Chariya Se Rase Majia. One has to gradually give up, minimize this Vishaya, this sense gratification. Vishaya means eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So Rupa Goswami gives the instruction, Anasaktasya Vishayan. Ana means no attachment. Sleeping is required, but not for attachment. Somebody is living for sleeping, and somebody is sleeping just to give rest to the body. Similarly, eating also. In other words, I don't live to eat, I eat to live. I don't live to sleep, I sleep to live. So therefore, we minimize these things. We don't cancel them. We minimize them so we have extra time to be Krishna conscious. This is called the wisdom. This is real wisdom. They don't teach wisdom in the material world. Sleep bed. You can sleep better if you buy this bed. It only costs $2,500 or $3,000, and your wife will be on one side and she can adjust it to soft, and then your husband on the other side, he can adjust it to hard. Does anybody have that bed? Somebody must have that bed. So you see, the bed is an expensive thing. The first thing a married couple buys is the bed, right? And it's a big bed, a very big bed, and one side is the wife, the other side. Actually, in Vedic culture, the husband and wife never slept together in the same bed. There was a section for the men in the house and a section for the women. They would only come together if they wanted to have children, but normally they did not sleep in the same bed. So there are a lot of things we can learn by listening to the class. Traditionally, it was never the men and women slept in the same bed. Never. Okay, so this very important verse, Anasaktasya Vishayan Yatarham Upayunchitata. unjita nirbande Krishna sambande yukta vairagyam uchyate. This is yukta vairagya. This connection to Krishna by minimizing sense gratification to what is only necessary and maximizing Krishna consciousness. And so Prabhupada says, don't sleep more, just as much as you require for maintaining your body and soul together. Don't have sex life more than it is required. In other words, they are allowed, just like Krishna says, sex life which is not against religious principles, that is I am. Sex life against religion, what is that? Avaida Sri Sangha. Avaida, illicit sex life, that is against religious principles. Otherwise, to get married and to beget nice children, Krishna conscious children according to Shastra, that is sex life and it's not forbidden. Krishna says, so dharma viruddho kamosmi, which is not against religious principles, that kama, that kind of lust I am, but not for other purposes. In this way, we have to mold our life if we are actually interested to become free from this janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha dosana darshanam. Bhagavad Gita 13.9. If we actually want to get free from the repetition of birth, death, old age, and disease, that is our real problem. People do not understand that this is our real problem. They are simply engaged in some temporary problem. The real problem is that why I am dying. In the Bhagavad Gita it said, Na hanyate hanyamane sarire, Bhagavad Gita 2:20. The soul does not die, even after the destruction of this body. So why my body should be destroyed? This is real inquiry. This is a real questioning. Why? Can I not get a permanent body which will never be destroyed? Yes, you will get. You will get. Tyaktva punarjanma naiti mam eti konteya. Bhagavad Gita 4.9. Krishna says, you will get a permanent body after giving up this body. Tyaktva punarjanma naiti. Bhagavad Gita 4.9. You do not get again material body. But why is that? It says, Janma karma chame divyam. Anyone who knows the mystery of my appearance, the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities, does not, upon leaving the body, take birth again, but comes back to me. That's how powerful knowledge of Krishna is. So shouldn't we be studying this knowledge of Krishna, which is Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam? This should be the real subject matter in all schools. This is why Hinduism is failing. They have adopted the British system, the European system, the American system of education. You know, everywhere you go in Calcutta, in Chennai, in Hyderabad, Microsoft certification. And people are more interested in Microsoft certification than in Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita. Just like John Lennon said, I think in 1969, he said, nobody's reading the Bible anymore. They're listening to our music. that created a backlash. All the kids who were Christians, their parents told them, you must read, you must reject the Beatles. So some people were burning their records and things like that. But what he said was true, that they were more famous than Jesus Christ at one time. Of course, that didn't last very long. And very soon after that, Lenin was killed. He was murdered because he spoke against God, or the Christian God, Jesus. So we see that today we're living in a world of weapons of mass distraction. And our minds are distracted, even devotees' minds are distracted by these weapons, like the cell phone, the television, the movies, the magazines, the books. The books that kids are required to read, none of them are Krishna conscious, and they're required to read them. So the parents should look at the books that their kids are obliged to read in middle school and high school and college. They're all nonsense, not one bit of Krishna consciousness in any one of those books that they're required to read. See? So what do you expect? What will happen to most kids. They will go away from Krishna consciousness because they're being programmed for it. Material education is exactly what it says, material education. It's only matter. There's no spirit involved. Okay, I'll stop right there. So Prabhupada says, last thing. So it is a great science. Therefore, Parikshit Maharaj inquired about Bezos? No. About Krishna. And Sukadev Goswami is describing, and he immediately says, Varyam esate prasnaha. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.1.1. Your question is very glorified. Yad lokahitam. Varyam esate prasna krito lokahitam ripat. This is very beneficial for me and for you. So the day your kid tells you, Mommy, Daddy, can you tell me about Krishna? You should say, Varyam esa te prasna. Your question is very glorified. So you should pray to Krishna that your children ask you, can you tell me something about Krishna? Yes. Oh, can you buy me a new cell phone? Can I get the latest digital cell phone? That's what they're asking. They're not asking, can you please tell me about Krishna? Haribol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so I'm sorry, we had homework. So I think Sanmukh did homework and Shasta did homework. You want to read your homework real quickly? And then I'll give you homework for next week. Just wait a minute. Sorry. The homework was to read several articles about so-called science, which is actually snake oil, and compare it to that false knowledge to real knowledge. Go ahead.
So the assignment was to write down the scientist's definition of science and the Vedic understanding of science. Read these two articles and compare this to the real science given in Vedic scriptures.
So read a little slower and a little louder.
The first article was Surprise, the Big Bang is not the beginning of the universe anymore. And number 2, scientists may have solved the mystery of matter's origin.
May have.
May have. Surprise, the Big Bang isn't the beginning of the universe anymore. An article by so-called scientist Ethan Siegel is a perfect example of pure speculation shrouded by scholarly words. Siegel argues that the Big Bang theory is not the beginning of the universe, which is true, but he ends up immediately offering another equally absurd theory in its place. Siegel mentions that scientists have used a few observations to come to the theory of the Big Bang. Number 1, they believe that the universe is more evolved than in the past. They have observed that older elements are more simple than newer ones. And number 2, the cosmic neutrino background, which is an excess of radiation surrounding the universe, is explained by the great radiation that the Big Bang created. And number 3, observations of faraway nebulae, which move at faster paces, indicate expansion of the universe. All these points given by the material scientists suggest that the universe is expanding at the current moment. Siegel says that using these observations, the first scientist to define the Big Bang extrapolated backward, theorizing, as any competent mathematician might, that you could go back as far as you wanted to what he called the primeval atom. Siegel very cunningly says that the scientists extrapolated backwards, which means to say that the scientists used knowledge about the current situation and speculated that as you go back in time, the universe becomes smaller and smaller, so much so that at the beginning of the universe there was nothing but the original particle. Siegel also makes a very funny statement. He mentions that any competent mathematician would create theories. This statement showcases the priorities of material scientists, to speculate about everything, even when there is a vast dearth of knowledge.
So what they call it, creating a theory is actually speculation. Right?
Yeah.
And they go backwards to an original infinitesimal particle as the origin of creation. Right? Go ahead. This is all like fairy tales, you know. Go ahead.
After describing how the Big Bang Theory came to be, Siegel makes one argument about why the Big Bang Theory would not work out. He says, for example, if the universe began from a singularity, then it must have sprung into
Singularity
existence.
means like one little particle.
Yeah. If the universe began from a singularity or one particle, then it must have sprung into existence with exactly the right balance of stuff in it, matter and energy combined, to precisely balance the expansion rate. If there were just a tiny bit more matter, the initially expanding universe would have already recollapsed by now. And if there were a tiny bit less, things would have expanded so quickly that the universe would be much larger than it is today. Siegel argues that the position of the Big Bang is so specific that it would be impossible to create such conditions. He says, if you want the universe to have the expansion rate and the total amount of matter and energy in its balance, you'll need some way to set it up in that fashion. Siegel is essentially skirting the topic of God and the creation of universe at this point, but he instead decides to offer a theory as absurd as the Big Bang, cosmic inflation. One trend that
Okay, inflation means that there's going to be a sudden expansion that you can't. It defies the laws of anything Einstein said about the speed of light. It's going to go faster than the speed of light, which completely goes against what Einstein said. Go ahead.
One trend that we can see in all material scientists is that they always stop at the creation of the universe. Everything that they mention is about what happens at the beginning of the universe, but never who was in charge of the creation of the universe. This is something that Siegel also does. He reaches very close to the topic of what comes beyond the material universe, but he again pulls back and decides, according to cosmic inflation, that the universe comes from the universe, or in other words, matter comes from matter.
Right.
Through his article, Siegel unintentionally exposes material scientists for what they really are, speculative hypocrites. Siegel mentions his support for extrapolation, read speculation, yet he also ends up making the statement that he considers making unfounded, incorrect assumptions of reality to be harmful. How can he who spreads so much incorrect information uphold his so-called beliefs that people shouldn't make unfounded, incorrect assumptions of reality? The innumerable contradictions in Siegel's article really expose the aimlessness and lack of progress of modern scientists. This pattern is also seen through the scientists may have solved the mystery of matter article. Unlike material science, which is focused on speculation via observation through the imperfect senses, spiritual science is realization through the strict following of Krishna conscious principles. Material science always focuses on what happens right at the beginning of the universe, but spiritual science describes everything that comes before. Material science is so useless that it cannot even fully discover the material universe. This is described by Srila Prabhupada in the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 7th chapter, 43rd to 45th verse. By the limited instruments of knowledge, either the senses or the material instruments like microscopes and telescopes, one cannot even fully know the Lord's material potencies, which are manifested before our eyes. For example, there are many millions and billions of planets far, far beyond the scientist's calculation. But these are only the manifestations of the Lord's material energy. What can the scientist hope to know of the spiritual potency of the Lord by such material efforts? Mental speculations by adding some dozens of ifs and maybes cannot aid the advancement of knowledge. On the contrary, such mental speculations will only end in despair by dismissing the case abruptly and declaring the non-existence of God.
That's the verse we read today.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So you see, they haven't taken out the Big Bang yet from the textbooks that kids have. See? And then they'll just replace it with another Big Bang like his story that's not true. And and they call this science. It has nothing to do with science. It's all speculation. And Prabhupada nailed it in this purport 2:745. Okay, so we'll stop right there. Thank you very much. The homework for next week is to understand, to go deeper into what is Vedic, what is knowledge according to the Vedas.
He wants to read about it.
Oh, yours. Oh, you did your homework. Okay, go ahead.
The question was, write down the scientific definition of science and the Vedic understanding of science.
Okay.
Read these two articles and compare this to the real science given in the Vedic scriptures. The scientific definition of science is knowledge about or study of the natural world based on facts learned through experiments and observation. Darwin defines science as science consists in grouping facts so that the general laws or conclusions may be drawn from them. Real science means which is true in all circumstances. Science of Krishna consciousness is real science, as this is predictable and proven in past, present, and future, and at any place, country, and in lower planets. It includes both material and spiritual worlds. Also, Prabhupada in chapter 1 of Science of Self-Realization states, according to Vedic civilization, the perfection of life is to realize one's relationship with Krishna or God. All living entities are parts and parcels of God. The parts are meant for serving the whole, just as the legs, hands, fingers, and ears are meant for serving the total body. We, living entities being part and parcels of God, are duty bound to serve Him. As per scientists, in the beginning there was nothing, and from that nothing came a big bang which created everything. Life was created from matter, and the gist of the theory presented in the article was the conditions of the early universe were biased towards creating something out of nothing.
Yeah, in that article, they said, in one little sentence he puts that, they're demonstrating how life comes from nothing, or matter comes from nothing. So I mean, it's a ridiculous statement. Go ahead.
The real science, as per the scriptures, is real science means full knowledge of everything, material and spiritual. Prabhupada mentions in an interview...
That's called the unified field theory, what Einstein was trying to find, but he never finished it. Go ahead. How can they finish it when they deny 3/4 of reality, which is the spiritual world? They only study 1/4, and even that they don't understand. Go ahead.
Prabhupada mentions in an interview on September 1973 at the Hare Krishna Center in London, our science is perfect because we are receiving knowledge from the perfect source, Krishna. And modern so-called science is imperfect because the scientist's knowledge is received from imperfect sources. The scientist's knowledge is imperfect because they have 4 defects, which are imperfect senses, cheating propensity, committing mistakes, and easily illusioned. Scientists keep coming up with new theories as their theories are incomplete because we have 4 defects. For example, scientists have not proven Darwin's theory yet with evidence. So this is just a theory, not science. We learn by hearing Krishna's words through a bona fide spiritual authority. In Bhagavad Gita 7.4 it is stated, philosophers who deal with mental activities are also not perfect in knowledge because they do not know the ultimate source, Krishna. This means that scientists are not aware that the supreme controller, Krishna, who has created this material universe. In Bhagavad Gita 10.8, Krishna says, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. This is explaining that Krishna is the supreme God and that He created everything, whether it was a material world or spiritual world.
So which do you prefer? We all come from a minuscule particle with which is maybe an infinite source of energy, or we all come from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Take your choice. Go ahead.
As per Narayana Upanishad 4, in the beginning of the creation, there was only the Supreme Personality Narayana. There was no Brahma, no Shiva, no water, no fire, no moon, no heaven and earth, no stars in the sky, no sun. This means that Krishna is the oldest living being. Scientists mention that life comes from matter. Life is not eternal, and after death, everything is finished. In reality, matter does not move without the touch of a living entity or soul. Scientists also mention that life is a combination of chemicals. The reality is that life is a spiritual force, completely different from matter. As per scriptures, life comes from life. An example for this is if one has been an automobile specialist for 20 years or so and knows the science of automobiles, he can judge the condition of a vehicle as soon as he drives it, even for a minute. Similarly, one who knows the science of God can immediately see the hand of God in every single aspect of the cosmos, from the microscopic to the macroscopic. But one who has no knowledge of the science of God cannot understand the workings of the world. Thus, something can't come from nothing. Real science is Krishna consciousness.
Something cannot come from nothing.
Yeah.
Did you say comes from nothing or nothing?
Thus, something can't come from nothing.
Can't, right?
Yeah. Real science is Krishna consciousness. By following the science of Krishna consciousness, one understands the real success of life. Real success is thinking about Krishna all the time, engaged in his devotional service, and going back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Did you write all that yourself?
My parents also helped me with some.
Yeah, it was very well done. Very well done. Okay, now you want to go a little further for homework. I mean, we looked at the downside. Now, explain very specifically. I mean, you started in your thing, but be much more specifically. What is real knowledge? And so you would have to begin with 13th chapter, verses 8 to 12, and expand on it to understand what is real knowledge. And because in order to know what is real knowledge, you have to first understand what is the real aim of life. Without understanding what is the aim of life, what is the purpose of life, you never really can decide what is real knowledge. So, real aim of life is to become free of the material body and to get a spiritual body. Now, spiritual body, you can attain the spiritual body in the material world, even by transforming the material body into a spiritual body, even here. How do you do that? Well, you have to look on the Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, verse 24. Then you'll know how to transform matter into spirit. Okay? So that's my hint. Hari Bol. Glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sorry it went a little late, but the future of our movement are our kids. So the more that they are educated, we should educate them better than we're educated. Then there's a future. Otherwise, Allahu Akbar for all of you.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Bando Moyi Savadana Mate Jaghara Prasade Bhai Ke Bhavatoriya Jai Jyoti hoy jaga hoy te Guru Muga Padma Vakya Chite te Koriya Ikya Padma Vakya Chite te Koriya Ikya Arana Korigo Mane Asha Charane rati aise utama gati
Charane rati aise utama gati
Jai prasade pure sarva asha
Jai prasade pure sarva
चक्षुदान दिलो से जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
चक्षुदान दिलो से जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो
दिव्य ज्ञान देव प्रकाशितो
प्रेम भक्ति जागा होते आविद्या विनाश जाते
प्रेम भक्ति होते आविद्या विनाश जाते
वेदे गाय जागर चरितो
वेदे गाय जागर चरितो
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनार बंधु
करुणा सिंधु आदम जनार बंधु
लोकेनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना
लोकेनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना
आगा प्रभु कोरो दोया देखो मोरे पाद छाया
प्रभु कोरो दोया देखो मोरे पाद छाया
ये बेजा त्रिभुवाना शीला प्रभुपाद पतित पवाना
प्रभुपाद पतित पवाना
शीला प्रभुपाद पतित पवाना
प्रभुपाद पतित पवाना
जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा
जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा
नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिन् इति नामिने
विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले
नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पश्चात्यादेशतारिणे
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद Radha Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya
Chaitanya
Chaitanya
Nityananda
Nityananda
Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Krishna 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 Hare Hare.
Hare
You want to sing the Damodar Ashtakam tomorrow?
Rama Rama Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Nittai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nittai Gaura Hari Bol Nittai Gaura
Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararajika Chasta Tarasatara Shri Shri Srimada's Divine Grace Shri Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mayapura Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Bhavani Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vestaya. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. I only wish to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, friend of the poor and Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go to Premanandi, Haribol. Namaste, Saraswati Devi.